Good day, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I am your host, the voice of reason. Today, February 23rd, 2022, we are continuing our coverage of the ongoing civil war taking place inside of the former state of Ethiopia. And in previous videos and conversations, we have talked about the possibility of Tigray declaring its independence. And I would say at this point, that has already been both confirmed and is continuing to be telegraphed in terms of discussions about a professional Tigray army. Now, as we stand right now, for all intents and purposes, the TDF, the Tigray Defense Forces, those regional forces that eventually mobilized the entire country to fight both the despotic regime of Eritrea and the Abiy loyalist formations coming out of the former state of Ethiopia, and then evicting those forces from the Tigray region and then invading the Amhara region. For all intents and purposes, the TDF is a professional military force. Now, granted, the Tigray region has not, as of yet, come out and declared itself a independent republic or nation state as of yet. Obviously, there would probably need to be some sort of plebiscite that would occur for that to happen. But the talk right now, if you're talking about creating a professional military force in the Tigray region, again, for all intents and purposes, you are also talking about a fully independent Tigray. Because again, only fully independent nation states have professional military forces or a professional army. Now, that's not to say that the Tigray region at this point has or does not have a fully professional force. In many cases, some of its fighters, some of its combat units are in fact better trained and probably have more combat experience than some of the better forces that exist both in Eritrea and the former state of Ethiopia. But I would say also that given that there has been a lull in some of the combat operations that have been occurring in and around the Tigray region, this has been a great opportunity for the TDF, the Tigray Defense Forces, to refit and re-equip, reconstitute a lot of its forces that were engaged in some really incredibly heavy fighting that took place both in the Tigray region and in the Amhara region as well. But as we speak, as we sit here today, the TDF continues to grow, it continues to mobilize, and in fact, it continues to train and equip a lot of those forces that were stood up in the opening days and the opening months of the conflict. So those forces that were mobilized and trained early on in the Tinbian region of the Tigray region, when the ENDF, when the Eritrean army was eventually evicted from the Tigray region, a lot of these forces now are in a much better position in terms of training, equipment, and just their effectiveness than they were when the conflict initially started. Yes, it's been very difficult for the TDF to acquire weapons and equipment from abroad, from official channels such as importing weapons and equipment. But it was able to, when it launched that operation deep into the Amhara region, seizing both Dessie, Kombolcha. There was a very large training center that was created just north of Dessie in Wollo University. This area was seized and taken controlled over by the Tigrayan Defense Forces, and a lot of equipment, uniforms, weapons equipment, were seized from this area as it was being utilized by the Amhara region and the ENDF as a staging area and a recruitment area for a possible offensive operation north. And we know that operation was attempted and ended in utter disaster for both the ENDF and Amhara regional forces as well. But a lot of equipment, a lot of things that you would need to both create and continue to operate a standing army were captured by the TDF in many of these areas, and then obviously brought back to the Tigray region. And we have since the Tigrayan Defense Forces has withdrawn from the Amharan region, we have continued to see these forces re-equip, train up, and get better and better as each day goes by. And in fact, there is great concern both of the Eritrean state and the Eritrean army of the possibility that we could see some sort of offensive both in Western Tigray, but at a certain point, quite possibly, if the situation needed to occur, we could see a TDF operation into Eritrea. And again, the TDF, the Tigrayan Defense Forces, are in a completely different situation in terms of where they stand right now, as opposed to what they look like 1 year ago. So outside of a general continued recruitment and equipment coming in from abroad, this force is in a much better position in terms of both numerically and having experienced constant combat operations. And now this force, meaning the TDF, has been allowed to, again, reconstitute, get a little bit of rest, and prepare itself for possible future operations against whatever objective they would need to be deployed against. With that being said, the ENDF, the B loyalist formations, continue to struggle against the Oromo Liberation Army, and we continue to see the Oromo Liberation Army expanding and getting larger, and continues to both have the ability to train and equip its forces with areas that are currently controlled and have been controlled by the OLA for some time. And we know that the ENDF and the B loyalist formations based out of Addis Ababa and also known as Finfine continue to struggle against the OLA. That's why we're not seeing any form of renewed military operation against the TDF by the B loyalist formations. Again, the capability simply right now is not there, and they continue to struggle against the OLA. But we continue to hear talk about the TDF officially announcing a fully professional and autonomous army. And with that being said, obviously, that would indicate that that aspirations for full autonomy and or full independence are currently underway. Again, Tigray, for all intents and purposes, right now is a fully independent nation state outside of formally declaring itself that. But again, once the siege of Western Tigray is broken, and we believe that is actually going to occur at some point. There are obviously talks underway between the Tigray regional government and the B loyalist formations that would indicate that maybe the B loyalist formations have had enough of fighting the Tigray region and may in fact could at some point withdraw without a all-out TDF military operation into Western Tigray. Now, the big problem right now in terms of facilitating that and making that happen is obviously Eritrea and elements within the Amhara region, including Fano and some other regional paramilitary forces that still believe it should possess the Western Tigray region. But again, wanted to have a fairly sizable update on what is occurring. We still continue to see fighting in the Afar region. That security operation by the TDF continues. As I talked about before, the buildup for a possible operation in Western Tigray continues. as does, again, the mobilization and what I would define as the betterment of the Tigrayan Defense Forces within the Tigray region as well, given the law and fighting compared to fighting that has occurred previously. Now, with that being said, we continue to monitor the situation, and we will have more information very, very soon, even though that most eyes of the planet right now are on what is happening between Russia and Ukraine. We will continue to report on what is happening in and around the Tigray region and the former state of Ethiopia. Again, more to come very, very soon. Have a good day, everybody.